Bradford Little Theater presents A Christmas Carol, produced by Tiffany Major, and now a word from our director, Caleb Combs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Caleb Combs, director of this evening's performance. It is our pleasure to present to you one of the world's best-loved Christmas stories, A Christmas Carol. Few shows are more eagerly anticipated each year than our traditional performances of Charles Dickens' classic tale. We had so much fun planning and preparing this special Christmas gift for you, and now it's ready. Off come the tags that say, "Please do not open till Christmas." Off comes the wrapping paper. Out comes the card that says, "To you, our audience," from the cast, crew, and production team at Bradford Little Theater. And so, without further ado, A Christmas Carol.
Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood if any good is to come from the story you're about to hear. Yes, old Marley was as dead as a doornail, and he wasn't much missed. You see, in life, Jacob Marley was a man whose only love was money. He was loath to lend it, but only too happy to collect. A more covetous old sinner you'd never meet, except perhaps for his business partner, Scrooge. Our story begins 7 years to the day after Marley's death, on Christmas Eve. Scrooge, either ignorant of the holiday or perhaps in spite of it, sat in the cold, dark counting house he and Marley had shared for many years, continuing about his accounting.
What are you doing, Cratchit?
Nothing, Mr. Scrooge.
You're doing nothing with the coal shovel.
Oh, well, I was just going to put a bit more coal in the fire here. It's dreadfully cold in here, sir.
I pay you as my clerk, not as a waster of my coal.
Oh, a clerk with frozen fingers isn't much of a clerk at all, sir. I can't hardly hold a pen. Okay. And the cold can't be very good for you either, sir.
I'm touched by your concern for my well-being, Cratchit. So I suppose you wouldn't mind if I redirected your salary into the purchase of more coal and took on the additional bookkeeping myself.
You know, I think I may have another pair of mittens in my coat. I'll just pop those on.
Good man. Answer that first.
Good afternoon. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe.
That's what the sign outside has read for 50 years.
And have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Does it matter?
Only that I should know whose name to put down in my donation book.
I am Scrooge. Mr. Marley is dead. He died 7 years ago this very night.
Oh, my deepest sympathies. But I have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner.
Generosity? What exactly do you want?
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more important than any other time to make some slight provision for the poor and destitute. Many thousands are in need of common necessities.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the union workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are. I wish I could say they weren't.
Ah, good. I'd feared from what you said that something may have happened to stop them in their useful course.
Yes, well, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time, of all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to remain anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I've mentioned. They cost enough. And those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, sir, and many would rather die.
Then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Sir, these people are suffering.
That's none of my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon.
Why, hello, Uncle.
Another visitor. Marvelous.
Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Humbug.
Christmas? A humbug, Uncle? Surely you don't mean that.
I do. Merry Christmas. What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Well, what reason have you to be miserable? You're rich enough.
Humbug!
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in a world of fools such as this? Merry Christmas. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer? If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
That's morbid.
He should.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine.
But you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you. Much good has it ever done you.
Well, there are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I've not profited. I've always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, pleasant time. The only time I know of when men and women seem by one consent to freely open their shut-up hearts and to think of those with less good fortune as fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Let me hear another sound from you, Bob Cratchit, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You are quite a powerful speaker, sir. It's a wonder you don't go into politics.
Oh, don't be angry, Uncle. Come, have dinner with us tomorrow. You still haven't met my wife.
I'll meet her and you in hell before I attend a Christmas dinner. Good afternoon.
Uncle, I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love? Good afternoon.
But you never came to see me before that. What's your reason now?
Good afternoon.
Well, I'm sorry to find you so resolute. We've never had any quarrel, of which I've been aware. But I have made the attempt to honor Christmas, and I'll keep my good humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
Merry Christmas to you and your family, Mr. Cratchit.
And Merry Christmas to you, sir. Thank you as well.
Good afternoon.
It's 5 o'clock, Mr. Scrooge. I'd better be starting home.
Wait just a moment, Cratchit.
Yeah?
I suppose you'll want the whole day tomorrow.
Well, if it's quite convenient,
It's
sir.
not convenient, and it's not fair. If I were to dock you half a crown for it, you'd think yourself cheated. Yet you don't think me cheated for paying a day's wages for no work.
Oh, it's only once a year, sir.
Ah, poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Very well. Be here all the earlier the next morning.
Oh, bless you, Mr. Scrooge. And good evening.
And so, with the day's work done, the counting house was locked up for the night. As Bob Cratchit raced home to spend what was left of Christmas Eve with his family, Scrooge took his usual melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern before making his way to his large yet empty house. As he started up the steps to the front door, he heard a sound which gave him pause. A sound on the wind. A familiar sound as he approached the door. It almost sounded like...
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, Mrs. Dilber.
I'm finished for the night, sir. Your porridge is cooking above the fire in your chambers.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
I was wondering, sir, could I perhaps come in at noon tomorrow? Mr. Dilber and I had a Christmas breakfast planned, you see.
Well, you may have a half day, if you're willing to accept a half a day's wage.
Well, I can't really afford that at the moment.
Then I suppose you know what time to arrive tomorrow.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge.
Very well. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Scrooge entered his house, too cold and sparse to be properly called a home. Only a few dim candles lit the way to his bedroom. Darkness is cheap, so Scrooge preferred it. Upon reaching his chambers, he locked himself in. Then, remembering the noise outside, double locked himself in. He prepared for bed, sat on his sofa to eat his small saucepan of porridge, when suddenly he heard a noise. Then again, and again, as if something were coming up the stairs. It was just outside the door. Then it stopped.
Humbug.
Suddenly, a figure stepped through the double-locked door as if it had been wide open. A figure casting an eerie blue glow. A figure bound in chains.
How now? What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
You're quite particular for a ghost. Fine. Who are you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
It's all a humbug.
It wasn't.
I won't believe it.
He should have.
Do I not appear to your eye to be Jacob Marley?
I suppose.
Then why do you doubt your senses?
Because the slightest thing affects them. A slight stomachache makes them cheats. You could be an undigested bit of beef, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whoever you are. Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that his spirit should travel far and wide among his fellow men. And if his spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death.
Why are you chained?
I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. Is its pattern of cash boxes, ledgers, and heavy purses strange to you? The chain you wear was as long and heavy as this one, 7 Christmas Eves ago. You've been working on it since then. Yes, yours is a ponderous chain.
Jacob, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have none to give, as I have none myself. I cannot linger anywhere. I cannot rest. In life, my spirit never walked beyond the narrow limits of our counting house. And now, many weary journeys lie ahead of me.
7 years dead? And traveling all the time?
All the time, yes. No rest, no peace. Incessant torture of remorse.
You travel fast.
On the wings of the wind.
You must have covered quite a lot of ground in 7 years. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob. We both were.
Business? Mankind was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of our trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. My time is nearly gone. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, Ebenezer.
Oh, Jacob, you were always a good friend to me. Thank you.
Tonight, you will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance and hope you mentioned?
It is.
I think I'd rather not.
Expect the first when the clock tolls 1. Heed their lessons and remember what has passed between us.
And as suddenly as he'd appeared, Marley was gone.
That porridge must have been undercooked. I'll have to have a talk with Mrs. Dilber about that tomorrow. It's all humbug.
And so, overcome with the stress of the day, Scrooge went straight to bed and fell asleep instantly. Scrooge awoke when the clock struck 1 and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside. He found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor, a figure cloaked in purest white, whose face seemed to shift from old to young, male to female, and back again within an instant. From the crown of its head sprung a bright, clear jet of light, illuminating the room around them.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who are you, then?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
And what business has brought you here?
Your welfare.
I think a full night of rest would perhaps better serve that end.
Your reclamation, then. Rise and walk with me.
Walk? Where? To the window? No, spirit, I cannot walk through the window. I'm mortal. I'll fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand upon your heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this.
I don't know what that means.
It means you should trust me. Have a little faith, Ebenezer.
How do you know my name? We're not falling. I'm not dead.
Not yet.
Where are we?
Well, look and see.
I don't... Wait.
You know this place.
Know it? I could walk its halls backwards. This is my old school. Unchanged after all these years. That's my old classmate, James Lockley.
Let's break all the plates in the dining hall.
He's also unchanged. I think I have an idea what's happening here. This is a memory.
Yes, these are but shadows. We may observe, but we may not interfere. All we see are shadows of Christmases past.
Long past?
Well, your past, so you tell me.
Rude. You are quite rude.
Speaking of which, I see a boy standing alone in one of the classrooms. He gazes out the window, looking at the other children boarding carriages to take them home for Christmas, wondering if a carriage will ever come for him. Did a carriage ever come for that boy, Ebenezer?
Once.
Ebenezer, I've been looking for you everywhere.
Fan?
Fan?
What are you doing here?
Oh, I just came to drop off a pie and say hello. What do you think I'm doing here, silly? To bring you home for Christmas.
I appreciate the effort, but we both know Father would send me away as soon as he saw me.
You don't know? I sent you a letter, but apparently I arrived before it did. It's amazing, Ebenezer. Father's like a new man. He spoke so kindly to me one night a few weeks ago that I finally worked the courage up to ask if you could come home. And he said yes.
He did?
Yes, so come on, hurry, pack your things.
Yes, best to hurry before he changes his mind and decides he doesn't want me after all.
Hey, none of that. You're coming home, and if anyone doesn't like it, they'll have me to deal with.
You're quite the woman, Fan.
Oh, I know. Now come on.
Your sister was quite the woman.
Yes. And quite possibly my only friend.
How shocking.
Sarcasm doesn't seem very spirit-like.
I enjoy surprising people. Now, we must move along.
That's about as far from a pleasant experience as I can imagine.
So are you. That's rather the point. Now look around you. Do you know this place?
Oh, yes, I was apprenticed here. This is Fezziwig's. And there's the old man himself.
Merry Christmas, lads and ladies. Eat, drink, enjoy yourselves.
He did know how to throw a party, old Fezziwig.
A small matter, it seems, to make these silly folk so full of gratitude.
Small?
He spent but a few pounds of your mortal money for food and drink. Is that so much that he deserves praise?
His power to make them happy didn't lie in money, Spirit. It was in looks, in words.
And there, in the corner, I see a young man trying not to catch anyone's eye. He looks like a frightened rabbit.
I was not frightened. I was simply disinterested in all of this foolish merrymaking.
Of course.
I was not frightened.
Ebenezer!
Yes, Mr. Fezziwig?
I'd like to introduce you to someone. This is Belle. She's Mrs. Fezziwig's niece. Belle, this is Ebenezer Scrooge, one of my employees and a very interesting young man. I believe you two will get along smashingly.
How do you do, Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that is, I am doing well. Thank you. Sir, could I have a word? With all respect, sir, I was rather hoping I could go upstairs to look over the new client's account. I'm certain your niece is lovely, but I don't know I'd have it in me to look after her tonight.
Oh, I brought her over to look after you. You look so frightened standing by yourself, almost like you were a bit ill. Try to enjoy yourself, my boy. If people are a bit overwhelming, just try choosing just one on whom to focus. You'll be fine. Oh, please don't stop it. This is quite so... Hi. Oh, well.
So, Mr. Scrooge, what do you like to do?
Well, I'm an apprentice accountant here at the firm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, what do you do for a living? I meant, what are your interests, hobbies, what does an apprentice accountant like to do?
Count?
Surely there must be something else. Something you enjoy outside of work.
I am a great lover of music.
Really?
Yes, I enjoy all music. I simply love it. I love it. The notes and the rhythms, all of that.
As do I. What sort of music do you like?
This that's playing right now. This is my favorite kind of music.
And what would you call this sort of music?
Fast. To be very honest, I hadn't really given much thought to what I might enjoy outside of work. My business occupies me constantly.
That sounds terribly lonely.
Better lonely than poor, I suppose.
I don't know I agree with that.
What do you mean? I'd certainly prefer security over the alternative.
Well, yes, and I admire your focus, but I suppose it depends on how you define rich and poor. I think a person could have all the money in the world and still be poor in spirit.
Haha, the spirit. I'm afraid I do a rather dreadful job at looking after mine.
Perhaps you'd benefit from having someone to help you look after it. A partner of sorts.
Perhaps. Maybe I might enjoy some dancing.
Maybe you would. To some of this fast music, perhaps.
Would you be interested in helping me find out?
I am simply too intrigued to refuse.
And you did find a partner, didn't you, Ebenezer? Only it wasn't Belle, and it wasn't your spirit you decided was most important to look after.
Oh, no, not this again!
My time is short. Quickly, what do you see?
We're in my counting house, mine and Jacob's. And there's... Oh, no. No, I won't watch this.
You must, if you're to learn anything. Now, see the one you gave your heart to and what you gave her in return?
It doesn't matter. Not to you. Another idol has displaced me in your eyes if I ever did outshine it.
What idol is that?
The golden one.
Why is this the way that everyone thinks? There's nothing the world pities so much as poverty, yet nothing it condemns so much as a pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much. Shutting yourself away with your ledgers and your coins may be a way to avoid suffering, but it also curses you to avoid joy.
I haven't changed towards you, Belle. Have I ever sought to release from our engagement?
Not in words, no, but in a changed manner, an altered spirit, and everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. I have watched your noble aspirations fall away, one by one. Meeting that dreadful man, Marley, convinced you that gain is all that matters. You've no place for love in your ledgers. You've never visited your nephew since Fan's death. The boy is 6 years old and he's never met his own uncle, his last connection to his mother.
I have grown a bit wiser, that's all. I'm not the idealistic boy that I was. But my heart is still with you.
It's not. This is a truth I have come to accept. You're with me because we made an agreement, and you're very good about honoring contracts. But our contract is an old one, made when you were a different man. And so, with a heart full of love for that man, I release you, Ebenezer.
Belle, please be reasonable.
Believe me when I say this is the most reasonable version of this conversation that could have happened. Would you prefer tears, shouting, broken furniture? What would be the point? I expect this may cause you some pain, but soon enough it will fade, as if it were a half-remembered dream, an unprofitable dream at that, and you'll go back to your banker's book where your heart truly lies. Goodbye, Ebenezer. I sincerely hope you're happy in the life that you've chosen.
Spirit, show me no more. Why do you delight in torturing me?
I take no more pleasure in this than you do, Ebenezer. I see your tears, and they grieve me. But pain and failure are things from which we can and must learn.
No more, I tell you. Leave me be. No more. Let me alone. No more. No. Huh?
Scrooge found himself back in his bedroom, as if he'd suddenly awoken from a nightmare.
Just a nightmare. Yes. No ghosts. All humbug. $1 again? How?
Looking about the room, Scrooge noticed a strange yellowish light coming from under the door to the adjoining chamber. He stood, slowly walked over, and cautiously eased the door open. He beheld what was undoubtedly his own sitting room, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. Hung in every corner, on every shelf, were so many green branches of holly, mistletoe, and ivy that the room appeared to be a living glade. And among all this green stood a jolly bearded giant, wonderful to behold, dressed in a rich green robe, and smiling the widest grin Scrooge had ever seen.
Ebenezer Scrooge, come in and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. I suppose you haven't seen the like of me before.
I cannot say I have.
You've not walked forth with any of my elder brothers?
I don't think so. Have you many brothers, Spirit?
Hundreds!
Quite the family to provide for. Conduct me where you will, Spirit. I've taken another trip tonight and learned a lesson that is working now. If you have anything to teach me, let me profit from it.
Touch my robe, Ebenezer.
All at once the sitting room disappeared, and Scrooge stood with a spirit in the dining room of a small, run-down house. A woman bustled about, carrying food from an adjoining kitchen to the table, when suddenly the front door opened, and in walked a figure Scrooge recognized instantly.
Merry Christmas, my dear.
On his shoulders, Bob Cratchit carried a small boy who, upon being set down, used a crutch he was holding to navigate his way toward a seat at the table.
Merry Christmas, Mother.
And Merry Christmas to you, Bob, and to you, Tiny Tim.
And where's our Martha?
Not coming. Too much work to do.
Our Martha not coming for Christmas Day?
Oh, I'm here, Father. I was just hiding in the kitchen. Where's my Merry Christmas?
Oh, Martha, home at last.
Can't even stand to disappoint her father for a joke. Or Martha, come on, everyone sit.
Well, this is quite a spread, my dear.
Such a goose, Mother.
And how was Tim on the walk home?
Oh, good as gold and better. Made nearly half the walk on his own.
I'm getting stronger all the time. I'm glad to go to church so that people can see me.
See you, Tim? What do you mean?
Well, I'm a cripple, and it might be pleasant for the people at church to remember at Christmas time who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Spirit, tell me, will the boy live?
I see a vacant seat at the table. If these shadows remain unaltered, the child will die.
No, no, that's not right. He must be spared. He's only a boy.
If he's going to die, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
You heard that.
My brothers and I have heard it for many years.
A feast like this deserves a toast. A Merry Christmas to all of us, my dears.
Merry Christmas.
God bless us, everyone.
And I give you the founder of the feast, Mr. Scrooge.
The founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast on, and I hope he'd have a big appetite for it.
Oh, my dear, the children, Christmas Day.
It should be Christmas Day, I'm sure, when one drinks to the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know it, Robert. You know it better than anyone.
My dear, Christmas Day?
I'll drink to his health for your sake and the day's, not for his. Long life to him, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
Now, Martha, tell us how work has been.
It's not a terribly impressive feast, is it? Probably costs no more than 2 or 3 pounds of your mortal money. How little it takes to fill these silly people with joy and gratitude.
But they have each other. That's the lesson, I suppose. Though it's not one I could apply, I'm afraid. I haven't got a family.
That is decidedly untrue.
Scrooge found himself standing in a small but well-furnished kitchen. Standing at the counter, pouring drinks, was his nephew, Fred.
Fred, are you all right, dear?
Oh, yes, love, fine. Just fine. I'm simply pouring fresh drinks for your sisters.
Fred, be honest with me. I can see you're troubled. What's wrong?
This is Fred's wife? She's very lovely.
I can't seem to shake my uncle calling Christmas a humbug from my mind. He believed it, too.
Shame on him, then. Sounds like a miserable old sod.
Never mind.
Come now, Eliza. You've never met him. He's not so frightening as he likes to think he is. Not so pleasant as he might be, but I've got nothing against him.
Seems he has something against you. Sending you away to boarding school after your father died, shunning you after our wedding. I'm not sure I'd want him in our house.
His offenses carry their own punishment.
I'm sure he's very rich. At least you're always telling me so.
And what of that, my dear? His wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He doesn't make himself comfortable with it. He just sits, collecting more and more, waiting to die, hoping to remain untouched by the world around him.
I have no patience with such a man.
Oh, I have. I feel sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here, he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come to dine with us. Well, what does it matter? The consequence is that he loses some pleasant moments, which could do him no harm. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not. I'll wear him down.
And if you don't, if he dies railing against Christmas and refuses your offer unto his last breath?
Well, he won't miss much of a dinner then, will he?
Excuse me, I happen to think my sisters and I did a fine job.
Indeed you did. Now let's go enjoy more of it.
Your intention was to prove the existence of my loving family? I must congratulate you on a most spectacular failure. This Eliza speaks with such disgust, despite never having met me.
Did you not see your nephew defending you against her words?
Half-heartedly, if that, quarter-heartedly, and only out of pity. I don't need the pity of a nearly penniless fool.
Why do you hate him so?
I don't. Hate requires an effort of thought. I have no thought for him.
You shipped him away to a country school, much as your father did for you.
I had neither the time nor the patience to raise a child.
You refused to meet his wife.
Out of the protest for mistake of marriage.
You're afraid of him,
I most
then.
certainly am not.
Then why can't you look him in the eye?
Because he looks like her. He has my sister's eyes. Seems cruel to give her eyes to the creature who killed her.
He was not responsible for her death.
I know that. I know that. But when I look at him, I'm forced to remember
that you couldn't save her. Come, my time is short.
Fred's kitchen faded away and was swallowed by darkness. Thick fog rolled along the ground in this seemingly endless void.
Spirit, your face is wrinkled, and your hair has gone gray. Are the lives of spirits so short?
My time upon this earth is very brief. It ends tonight. Mark me before I depart, Ebenezer. Man may have his own children, but he also shares 2 children with all other men. A son called Ignorance, and a daughter called Want. Beware of them both, for they are wont to drain the lives of their fathers.
At the sound of the clock, the ghost of Christmas present was gone, instantly vanished from sight. Scrooge looked about in the darkness until his eyes settled on a solemn figure, tall, thin, clad completely in black.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us. Is that so, Spirit? Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any other spirit I've encountered, but I believe your purpose is to do me good. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on.
Scrooge found himself standing on a busy city street, seemingly at the end of a workday. The spirit pointed to 2 businessmen, and Scrooge walked closer to hear their talk.
No, I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
Well, what was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
God knows.
What's he done with his money?
I haven't heard. He left it to his company, maybe? He didn't leave it to me, and that's all I know. It's likely to be a cheap funeral, too. I don't know anybody who'd go to it.
Suppose we volunteer to go and see the old fellow off.
You know I don't mind going if lunch is provided. If I'm going, I must be fed.
Well, I feel as if I must go. Come to think of it, I'm not sure I wasn't his closest friend. We used to stop and speak whenever we'd see each other on the street.
And that was your friendship, the act of speaking?
Seems to be the closest he could get.
Spirit, I know those men. I trade with them at the exchange. Of whom were they speaking? Who has died? Thank you for that concise answer. All right. Lead on, Spirit.
Scrooge and the spirit were then standing in a graveyard before a pale stone, while 2 gravediggers toiled away at their trade.
This stone is quite plain, eh?
It was in Gretch's will, the cheapest stone available.
With all his money?
It's not like anyone will come to see it, so what does it matter?
Such callousness. A man has died. And by all this talk of money, a successful man. Must have built quite a life for himself. Is there no one in this town who feels emotion caused by his death?
Scrooge saw that he was now in the sitting room of a small house, where a woman sat sewing and casting anxious glances at the door.
Darling, is it good or bad?
Bad, I believe.
Oh, David, are we quite ruined?
No, there's hope yet, Caroline.
Only if he relents. Nothing is past hope if such a miracle happens.
He is past relenting, dear. He's dead.
Oh?
I went to see him to obtain a week's delay, and his clerk told me he'd been very ill for some time. He was found in his bed yesterday.
Well, to whom will our debt be transferred?
I don't know, but by that time we'll have worked up the money. We can sleep with light hearts tonight, Caroline.
For the first time in years. Yes, light hearts.
That wasn't quite the emotion I was seeking, Spirit. What? Why have you brought me back to the graveyard? To gaze upon this plain stone? I haven't got my glasses. I can't quite make out the name. Oh, I do pity this man, dying cold and alone. Can you not show me some tenderness connected to a death? Else this cold, callous feeling may linger on in me.
Scrooge stood in a house that was familiar, for he had visited it earlier that night. But the Cratchit house was different now. The fire still burned on the hearth, but it did little to penetrate the cold darkness that had settled in the room.
I suppose your father should be home soon, Martha. It's close to his time.
Rather past it, actually, but he seems to be walking slower these days.
I have known him to walk with. I have known him to walk with Tim upon his shoulders quite fast indeed. But he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble at all. Robert?
Hello, Father.
Hello, dears.
Here's your tea, my love.
Thank you. Well, the sewing is coming along wonderfully, I see. It should be done well before Sunday, it seems.
Sunday? You went today, then?
Yes, my dear. I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him. I promised him I'd walk here on a Sunday. My boy! My boy!
Oh, Robert!
I saw Mr. Scrooge's nephew today on the street. He asked why I seemed a little down. I decided to tell him. He's the kindest spoken man you'd ever heard, for he said, "I'm very sorry for that, Mr. Cratchit, and for your good wife."
Oh, bless him.
I'd barely met the man once, so I don't know how he could have known that.
Known what?
That you are a good wife. Anything you need, he said. Don't hesitate to ask, he said. It wasn't the offer so much as the kindness. I felt as if he'd known our tiny Tim.
I'm sure he's a good soul.
That family's in sorely need of good souls.
Now, Martha, you mustn't say these things, especially now when, with all that has happened, we must remember Tim. We must remember how patient and mild he was, though he was a little child. When we won't be so quick to anger, won't quarrel so easily and forget Tim in doing it.
No, Father, never. We'll remember him always.
Spirit, why? Why do you grieve me with this vision? What can be done to change it? Speak, I beg you. Why have you shown me this? And who is the dead man to whom your lesson keeps returning?
They were in a shop now. One Scrooge had never stepped inside, but he knew its kind. A man stood behind a counter, looking through a bundle a woman had set down.
Those sheets and towels are in perfectly fine condition, barely used. He always complained they were too soft, and soft meant expensive. God docked some of my pay to make up the difference. That was my reward for trying to make him comfortable. And the blankets should fetch a nice sum.
His blankets? I hope he didn't die of anything catching.
What he had, he gave himself, and you can look through that shirt till your eyes ache. Not a hole to be found in it. They almost wasted that one.
What do you call wasting it?
Nearly buried him in it.
This is quite a load. You sure no one's gonna miss it?
Only he would, and he's not in any condition to miss anything now.
Fair enough. Who's the worse for loss of a few things such as these? And Mrs. Dilber? Not a dead man, I suppose.
No, indeed.
Mrs. Dilber.
If he wanted to keep them after he was dead, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? The wicked old screw. Then he might have had someone to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying there in his bed, gasping out his last, completely alone. Even his nephew stopped trying to visit him after the first month, and I thought poor Fred would never give up. You can only scream, "I wish to be left alone," so often before the wish comes to pass.
Again the graveyard, closer to the stone. And now, Spirit, I believe I understand. Something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. Before I draw nearer to the stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or things that may be only? Men's courses foreshadow certain ends, but if the courses be parted from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me.
And there, carved in plain type upon unfeeling stone, was the name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Spirit, am I the man who lay in this grave? No. Spirit, no. No. Hear me. I am not the man I was. Why show me this if I am beyond hope? I fear you, but I don't believe you cruel. Your nature, the nature of all the spirits I've met tonight, intercedes for me, pities me. Assure me that I may yet change the shadows you've shown me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, present, and the future, the spirit of all three striving within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Scrooge grabbed onto the specter's hand, pleading for his soul. As he gazed upon its hooded head, it seemed to change form, slowly dwindling into a bedpost.
I will live in the past, present, and future. I swear it here upon my knees, Jacob. Oh, heaven in Christmas time, have mercy. Why, this is my bedpost. My curtains. My sheets. My blankets. They're all here. I am here.
Scrooge raced to the window and threw it open.
No fog. No mist. Sweet, clear air. Golden sunlight. Merry bells. Merry. You there, boy. Yes, you, my fine young fellow. What day is it today?
Today, why, it's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day? I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Well, they can do whatever they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Do you know the poulterers? The next street over on the corner.
I should hope I did.
Intelligent boy. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging in the window?
What, the one as big as me?
Delightful boy, yes, my fine fellow. The one as big as you.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
Oh, walk on.
No. I am in earnest. Go and buy it. And tell them to bring it here that I might give them direction of where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. And there he goes, off like a shot. Delightful boy. Simply delightful. I know just where I'll send it, too. It'll be a wonderful joke, and he'll never suspect the source. Well, none of them will. But I must ready myself and give the delivery men directions. Ah, Mrs. Dilber. Oh! What are you doing here? It's Christmas Day.
I'm working, Mr. Scrooge.
Mrs. Dilber, it is wonderful to see you here. Now get out. Go home. Celebrate this wonderful day. Take tomorrow as well. Full wages for both. And here, take this to pay for your breakfast.
Mr. Scrooge, this would pay for a month's worth of breakfast.
And it is still so much less than you deserve, my fine lady. Now, be on your way. Oh, but before you go, I'd like you to dig into my closet and fetch a certain shirt of mine. You know the one. I'm sure it will fit Mr. Dilber handsomely.
Sir?
A Merry Christmas, Mrs. Dilber. And a Happy New Year.
Oh, my. It's finally happened. He's gone mad.
Scrooge left his house that morning nearly bursting with his newfound Christmas cheer. As he all but skipped down the street, he spied a familiar face.
Ah, my good man.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe?
The very same, my dear sir. I hope you succeeded in your fundraising goal yesterday. It's very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that is my name. I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to beg your pardon for my rudeness and cruelty yesterday, and perhaps accept...
Good Lord! My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
And not a farthing less. There are a great many back payments included in it, I assure you. Will you do me this favor?
Sir, I don't know what I can say to such generosity.
Then say nothing, please. Only come and see me sometime. Will you come and see me?
I will. I swear it.
Thank you, sir. I am much obliged to you. And a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Scrooge.
A bit later, Scrooge stood before a house he'd only visited in his visions the night before. He paced by the door a dozen times before finally working up the courage to knock.
No, dear. The turkey's not dry, just well cooked. It's... Oh.
Nephew?
Hello, Uncle.
Am I still welcome for dinner?
Of course. Come in. There's someone you simply must meet.
Fred, darling, was someone at the door?
Eliza, this is my uncle, Ebenezer Scrooge. I've invited him to join us for dinner, as we discussed. Is that still all right?
It is my most sincere pleasure to meet you, Eliza, and to apologize with all my heart that it's taken this long, and to wish you, both of you, a Merry Christmas.
And a Merry Christmas to you.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Come, Mr. Scrooge, warm yourself by the fire. We're almost finished preparing dinner.
Oh, no, I insist on helping. I'll come with you to the kitchen. If nothing else, I can entertain you with stories of Fred's mother.
I'd like that very much, Uncle.
The next morning, Bob Cratchit hurried to the counting house as quickly as he could. He was already late, but perhaps he'd be able to scurry in and sit down to work before Scrooge noticed.
Cratchit!
Or perhaps not.
Come in here, please.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge.
Just what do you mean by coming in here this time of day?
Well, I'm sorry, sir. I am a bit behind my time.
Yes, you are. Step this way, sir, if you please.
Now, it's only once a year, sir. It won't happen again. You see, I was making rather merry last night. There was such a feast. An enormous turkey delivered to our door out of nowhere.
I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I have decided to raise your salary.
Sir?
Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas than I've given you in many a year, my good fellow. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family. We'll discuss your affairs this very afternoon. Now, go make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Yes, sir.
And Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was like a second father. He became as good a friend, as good an employer, and as good a man as could be found in the good old world. He laughed often and gave generously. It was often said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well if any man possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
We thank you for joining the Bradford Little Theater's presentation of A Christmas Carol, featuring the BLT players David Merwine, Brad Preston, Chris Lathrop, Devin Moore, Kimberly Preston, Josh Hatcher, Isaiah Hatcher, Melody Campbell, Connie Shanks, George Wagner, Bella Major, Michaela Hatcher, Sean Fox, Louis Costa, Tony Vinca, Roy Collins, and Danny Newman. Lastly, a word from our director, Caleb Combs.
Once again, this is Caleb Combs. Thank you for listening. Merry Christmas, good night, and God bless you, everyone.